In 1887, a general store owner in Sedalia, Missouri, made more profit on a 5-cent box of matches than the railroad made hauling a ton of freight across the state. He did it with a technique that every successful merchant of his era understood, and that Wall Street spent the next century making sure you would never learn. Number 7 on this list is a pricing method so effective that modern retailers quietly use a digital version of it today while pretending they invented it. Number 14 is a customer retention system that costs nothing and outperformed every loyalty program ever designed by a corporation. And number 1, the tactic at the top of this list, is the single most powerful business principle of the 19th century. And it is the one that the modern economy worked hardest to bury. Here is what nobody tells you about 19th century American merchants. They were not primitive. They were not simple. They operated sophisticated businesses using principles so effective that when corporations finally figured out how to centralize commerce, the first thing they had to do was make people forget these methods ever existed. These 20 tactics built fortunes from nothing. They required no capital, no degree, and no permission. Before we start, hit subscribe, because what you are about to learn is not history. It is a playbook. Let us count them down. Number 20, the loss leader. Your great-grandfather who ran the general store understood something that took corporate retail another 50 years to formalize. He would sell flour at cost, sometimes below cost. He lost money on every barrel, and he got rich doing it. Because nobody walked into the store, bought flour, and walked out. They bought flour, and while they were there, they bought coffee, sugar, cloth, nails, and tobacco, all priced at full margin. The flour was bait. The profit was everything else in the basket. He tracked which items drew people in and which items made the money. He priced accordingly. The supermarket chains that put him out of business in the 20th century used the exact same technique. They called it a loss leader and treated it as a sophisticated innovation. He called it Tuesday. Number 19, the store credit ledger. The store credit ledger as a retention tool. Before credit scores, your great-grandfather extended credit to his customers based on something no algorithm has ever matched: his personal knowledge of every family in town. He knew who got paid on the 1st and who got paid on the 15th. He knew whose crop came in when. He knew which families were honest and which needed watching. He carried his customers between paydays in a ledger. But here is the part the modern economy buried. The credit was not a service he provided. It was a chain that bound the customer to his store. A family that owed him money shopped only at his store. They could not take their business down the street while carrying a balance. The debt was not a risk. It was loyalty, enforced by arithmetic. He never advertised. He never ran a sale. His customers could not leave. Number 18, the bulk break. Manufacturers and wholesalers sold in quantities ordinary families could never use. A barrel of crackers, 100 pounds of sugar, a full bolt of cloth. Your great-grandfather bought in those quantities to wholesale prices, then broke the bulk, selling crackers by the handful, sugar by the pound, and cloth by the yard. The margin between the wholesale bulk price and the retail unit price was his entire business model. The trick was the breaking point. He knew exactly how small a quantity a customer would buy and exactly how much margin he could add at each size. A barrel of crackers bought for $3 sold by the handful for $9. Modern warehouse clubs reversed this exact model and called it revolutionary. Buy in bulk, save money. Your great-grandfather had been profiting from the gap between bulk and unit for 100 years. Number 17, the seasonal credit cycle. A farmer had no money in spring. He had all his money in fall, after the harvest sold. Your great-grandfather built his entire business around this rhythm. He extended credit through planting season, carried the farmer through summer, and collected in the fall when the crop came in. He charged no formal interest. Charging a farmer interest would have driven him to the next town. Instead, he built the cost of carrying the debt into his prices. The farmer who paid cash got one price. The farmer who paid in the fall got a slightly higher one. The difference was the interest, invisible, folded into the cost of goods. The farmer never felt charged. The merchant never failed to collect his premium. Everybody understood the arrangement. Nobody ever said it out loud. Before we continue, if what you are hearing is documented rather than speculated, that is the entire reason this channel exists. Subscribe, and these investigations will keep finding you. First pattern break. Numbers 16 through 11. The merchant's daily tactics. The anchor price. Your great-grandfather displayed an expensive item next to the one he actually wanted to sell, making the second item feel like a bargain by comparison. Retailers call this price anchoring now and teach it in business school. The penny profit on volume. He would rather sell 1,000 items at 1 cent profit each than 10 items at $1. Volume hid his margin and built his customer base, $10 either way, but 1,000 satisfied customers versus 10. The house brand. He bought generic goods, packaged them under his own store name, and sold them at a premium because his name meant something in that town. Every grocery chain's store brand is the same move. The standing order. He learned each family's regular needs and simply set their goods aside before they asked. Coffee for the Hendersons every Thursday, flour for the Bells on the 1st. The customer felt known. The merchant locked in the sale before a competitor could make it. The credit reference network. Merchants in neighboring towns shared information about customers who moved or traveled by letter and by word of mouth, so a man's reputation followed him. A private credit bureau built on handshakes, decades before the corporations built one and charged everyone to access it. The seasonal markdown timing. He knew exactly when to clear seasonal stock. Not too early to lose margin, not too late to eat the loss. He read his inventory like a farmer reads the sky. 6 tactics, all operating on the same principle. Know your customer better than any distant corporation ever could, and turn that knowledge into margin. Number 10. The quality tier. Your great-grandfather stocked the same type of product at 3 different quality levels, and he understood that the 3 tiers were not really about quality. They were about letting the customer sort themselves. He stocked a cheap coffee, a middling coffee, and a fine coffee. Most people bought the middle one, not because it was the best value, but because human beings avoid the cheapest option to preserve their dignity, and avoid the most expensive to preserve their wallet. The middle tier was where he made his money. The cheap tier existed only to make the middle look reasonable. The expensive tier existed only to make the middle look affordable. He did not invent this from theory. He learned it from watching 1,000 people choose coffee. Every coffee shop, every electronics store, every wine list in America runs this exact 3-tier structure today. Number 9, the deliberate scarcity. When your great-grandfather received a shipment of something desirable, the first oranges of the season, a bolt of fine fabric, a new tool, he did not put it all out at once. He put out a little. He let it be seen, he let it sell out. The scarcity drove the desire. The customer who missed the first batch came back early for the second, paid full price, and told their neighbors. The trick was never lying about the scarcity. The goods really were limited. He simply controlled the pace at which they appeared. Every product launch, every limited edition, every drop culture marketing campaign in the modern economy is running your great-grandfather's orange shipment. Number 8, the reciprocal obligation. Your great-grandfather gave things away constantly. A penny candy for the child, a small extra measure for the loyal customer, a bit of credit forgiven in a hard year. He was not being generous. he was building obligation. Every gift created a sense of debt that the recipient discharged through loyalty. The mother whose child got free candy did not take her business elsewhere. The farmer whose debt was forgiven in a drought year was a customer for life. This is the oldest principle in human commerce, and it is the one corporations struggle most to replicate, because reciprocity requires a real relationship, and corporations can only fake one. Your great-grandfather did not fake it. He knew your name, your children, and your troubles. And that knowledge was worth more than any marketing budget ever assembled. We are halfway through. If you have made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. The final tactics are the ones the modern economy worked hardest to erase, because these are the ones an individual can still use today. Leave a comment below telling us which one you have seen a modern company use without admitting where it came from. The next investigation often starts in those comments. Second pattern break. Numbers 7 through 3. The advanced merchant principles. The psychological price point. Your great-grandfather priced goods at 19 cents instead of 20 cents, 99 cents instead of $1, because he learned that the left digit anchors the perception. A study would confirm this a century later. He confirmed it by watching his till. The bundled sale. He paired a slow-moving item with a fast-moving one and sold them together at a price that felt like a deal. The slow item moved. The fast item carried it. Every value meal and product bundled today is the same move. The trusted recommendation. When a customer was uncertain, your great-grandfather recommended the item that built the relationship, not the one with the highest margin that day. He sacrificed one sales profit for 10 years of trust. The corporations that replaced him optimized every single transaction and lost the customer entirely. The local sourcing premium. He bought from local farmers and craftsmen and told his customers exactly whose hands had made the goods. The story was the product. People paid more for the EGG when they knew the hen. Every farm-to-table marketing campaign rediscovered this 100 years later. The cash discount, quietly offered. He gave his best price to the customer who paid cash and freed him from carrying the debt. The customer felt rewarded. The merchant improved his cash flow. Both understood the deal without a contract. 5 principles, all buried by an economy that needed you to believe these were sophisticated corporate innovations rather than the everyday knowledge of a man who ran a store. Number 2. The reputation as collateral. Your great-grandfather's entire business ran on a single asset that never appeared on any balance sheet: his name. In a town where everyone knew everyone, his reputation for fair dealing was worth more than his inventory. A merchant known to cheat lost the town. A merchant known to deal fairly owned it. This reputation was not marketing. It could not be bought. It was earned one honest transaction at a time and destroyed by a single dishonest one. The modern economy replaced reputation with brand, something that can be manufactured, purchased, and rehabilitated by a public relations firm. A corporation caught cheating runs an ad campaign and recovers. Your great-grandfather had no such escape. His reputation was his business, and he protected it the way a man protects the only thing he truly owns. The corporations buried this principle because they could not survive under it. Number 1. The relationship as the entire business. At the top of this list, because it underlies every other tactic documented here, is the principle that the modern economy worked hardest to destroy. Your great-grandfather was not in the business of selling goods. He was in the business of relationships, and the goods were simply how the relationship expressed itself. He knew that a customer was not a transaction. A customer was a 30-year arc, a young couple who became a family who became grandparents, buying from him across decades, through good years and bad, because he had been there for all of it. He priced for the lifetime, not the sale. He would lose money today to keep a family for a generation. Every modern business principle, customer lifetime value, retention marketing, relationship selling, is a corporation trying to rebuild, with software and data, the single thing your great-grandfather had for free. He knew his customers as people. The modern economy needed you to become a transaction, because a transaction is scalable and a relationship is not. So they built a world of transactions and called it progress. And they buried the merchant who knew your name. 20 tactics, all documented, all effective, and every single one of them either secretly used by modern corporations or impossible for them to replicate. The 19th century American merchant was not a simpler version of the modern business. He was, in many ways, a more sophisticated one. He operated on relationship, reputation, and a depth of customer knowledge that no algorithm has matched. What Wall Street buried was not the merchant's methods. The methods survive, repackaged, renamed, and sold back to us as innovation. What Wall Street buried was the merchant himself, the independent operator who knew his customers, owned his reputation, and built wealth one relationship at a time without a bank, a corporation, or permission from anyone. That man was not primitive. He was free. And the economy that replaced him needed you to forget he ever existed. If there's a merchant tactic from your own family's history, a method your grandparents used to run a store, a stand, a route, or a trade, leave it in the comments. This channel exists to document what was nearly forgotten. You might be the last person who remembers it. And if you want to see what else was erased, the channel page has the full archive. Untold American Rights, the laws they removed, the money they buried,